Hi, welcome to the Nursing Dose with your host, Dr. Farah Laurent. Today, I have an exciting guest. I have Kellé Thorpe. She is a award-winning fractional CFO. We're going to get into all that in just a moment. But if you haven't gotten your tickets to Nurses Making Business Moves, definitely get your ticket. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into basically how to grow your business, how to scale your business, and why you need a fractional CFO and when to actually get one. So we're going to get into all that. Super excited to have you, Kellé. If you want to say hi and introduce yourself to the folks out there.
Hey, yes, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Farah. I am so excited to be here. Let's start with what I do. So most people hear the fractional buzzword out there nowadays, and they're like, what does that even mean? So what I am is a fractional CFO. I am a business strategist, and what that means is you get financial strategy without having to pay a six-figure salary that we normally get paid in large corporations. So I'm gonna be honest though, I like to give a little bit about my background because I didn't set out to become and I think a lot of your audience can resonate with that, right? I was a corporate leader. I was in the controllership, financial, administrative ops space of large organizations between $7 million and $2 billion in revenue. So I was doing great work in the executive space, building great companies, building great teams. That was what I really prided myself on. But when the pandemic called, it caused me to pivot a bit. And I started doing some consultancy work. And I won't get too long-winded because I know we'll get into this a little bit. But how I started doing what I then called business consultancy and outsourced CFO work was because I was running into people that have bookkeepers and then they just go straight to file their taxes. And I'm like, so what do you do in between there? And like, oh, I just save the reports till tax time. Well, that's kind of pointless. Like you're supposed to do something in between there. Yeah. And that's where CFO services lie. So that's where we are now at Kommas with Kellé, a full service business advisory firm. And that's how we support.
Awesome. So really, for those that are watching, let us know where you're watching from. We're live currently on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and TikTok. And if you happen to be watching the replay, if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the chat. We'll also have Kelly's information at the end of the show in the comments so you can connect with her as well. But we met on LinkedIn, right? And it was so funny because I think I messaged you, I saw what you did and I was like, let's get on a Zoom call and talk about some stuff. And then one of the things I first noticed when you came on is you had like your branded shirt, people over profit. So, just curious what that means to you. If you could just kind of tell the audience about that.
It's funny. I am often known as I'm a brand whore. I have so much branded merchandise. It's crazy. And I don't even know. I have so many of these shirts. I was probably a different color when we met. But like I said in my intro, I really am. I am a teen mom. So I had my first child while I was in my first year of college, right out of high school. And I had to work my way up through corporate. So I was not taught finances growing up. Yep. I was not in a family that I inherited money or even in an entrepreneurship family, right? What I appreciated through my being a teen mom and having to work hard as hell up the corporate ladder is the fact that people embraced me, and I had a mentor through that process that didn't care what I had going on in my personal life as it pertains to my son, but she would pull me through the reins. I was a director of finance before I even finished my college degree. And how I did that was because learning from my own mistakes and appreciating people along the way, and even the bad bosses that I had.
Yeah.
So I was going to be that corporate leader that was not going to be the one who can work from home when my kid is sick or who can stay home when it's snowing outside, but everybody else in the support staff had to go in. I was that person going up the ladder. And I learned how to appreciate where people are along the journey, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just embedded in me to care for humanity first. So quite naturally, when we are working with clients at KWK, it's always, what do the people need? What person need? Internally, emotionally, even physically, but we care about the person first, and the profits will come. It's organic. Once you root a business caring about people first, it's organic on both ends. So that's exactly why. And it was coined people over profit for that reason.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Because, you know, a big part of my audience, like you mentioned, are nurses, but I also have other followers who follow some of the content that I do. But obviously, nursing, you know, we're very nurturing. We're like a service-based profession. And we're really about people, and we really care about people, right? But I think what happens sometimes, you know, from my story, I kind of feel like I was pushed into entrepreneurship. And I think some people sometimes are like nudged into it a little bit. You know, I tell my story all the time. Like I was laid off 3 times in 5 years. And I know many people can resonate with that. And then they just look into entrepreneurship, whether it's a side hustle or a main business. But some nurses struggle with the business side of things because we're too into the people, right? And we often want to like give away our stuff for free all the time. And it's okay to give away some stuff like content or podcast, stuff like that. But we really have to work on the business acumen and the business mindset. So can you talk a little bit about that, maybe when you first started as an entrepreneur, the shift you had to make from the employee mindset to the entrepreneur mindset?
Oh, that's so good. And actually, let me write something down because it took me to a different place. So I'm going to start with the fact that, yes, I think also it's in the field of nursing. And if you are a female nurse, we're more nurturing typically, right? Because it's the woman's makeup to be nurturing. So we have both sides because we're trying to help everybody and we're trying to make sure everybody else is straight and before we're straight. So I get that. I think to fix that, that's more of a reason why you need an accountability partner, number one, that'll call you accountable to whatever it is. But 2, pricing. That's where pricing is key, and sticking to your pricing, right? When you're building out your pricing model, you're not only building out what you want your revenue to be for the year, but you're also building out how you want to execute that, right?
Right.
And so what I tell people, the most missed opportunity in that is, I come from a law firm background of accounting, and we have a pro bono type of a word that we use for work, right?
Right.
So in your pricing, you should think of what I would consider pro bono. I have some organizations where if these business owners come to me and they need support, whether they can afford our services or not, I will guide them along the way at a certain level of work. And that's just that. So I think that covers both ends. So you don't have to just sell all the time. Because quite frankly, we have community work, charity work. There's things that our heart and our passion desires to do. And there's people that our heart desires to serve in that work. So as long as we have boundaries behind what that looks like, then I feel like it's fine. The employee to entrepreneurial mindset. Now, why I said that's a little different for me is I actually had a session with one of my business advisors a couple months ago. And we got into a conversation about my 401k retirement account. The money that was just sitting from when I had corporate days, and it was just sitting in an IRA, right? And I was telling her how concerned I was that I hadn't made time to move that money and start strategically doing anything with it yet, because I've been just full head in with this business for the last 5 years. And she said to me, "You're still thinking like an employer." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Her whole thought process was, my business is at a point, and revenue wise and in structure wise, where the 401k is not the number one priority. It is, how do I reinvest the money that's coming into this business so my taxes now won't be so heavily impacted in ways that will be to my detriment. And I can be strategic as well and have great margins, great growth, and even a beautiful net bottom line, but reinvest that money. Yes, the money sitting in the 401k is definitely something that needs to be addressed, but in a 401k and maxing it out, all of those employee concepts in my head were no longer top. They weren't even my top three things. Like maxing out a 401, that's only $25,000 a year. I could put that in the account in January or February. Like, that is not my biggest concern right now. So I think there were good things that the employee mindset had ingrained in me that many people don't consider when they turn the trigger on to become an entrepreneur. There are so many other things too, but I would say that would be my number one. And if I had to pick one more that probably is more reliant, is the balance, especially when you're trying to juggle a W-2 job and do this thing called entrepreneurship. It's very hard because you then often take that hesitancy to go talk to a boss about a raise, of these ambitious things into your business when that doesn't even follow into your business. And that's why I tell people, let your W-2 job fund your dream business, but know when God has aligned you to cut it off.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about that. I love that. Okay, just because for the nurses that'll be coming to the Nurses Making Business Moves conference, and not even just nurses, because it's open to everybody and anyone can come who's business minded. However, the reason I built this conference is just for this reason, because there's not much out there specifically for nurses, nurse practitioners that are now starting med spas, practices, and things like that to get information. So traditionally, nurses typically stick with nursing or healthcare. And what I've done now is wanting to bring different industries, such as you as a finance expert, marketing people, different people to be at this conference. But the majority of nurses still have some type of employer when they want to make the transition, as you're mentioning. So some of them are still working full-time or part-time, and it's causing a lot of strain, right? Because we're like, when do we know to make the move? And I know everyone has a different perspective on this. And again, it depends on maybe if you have a partner, what savings you have, all these different things come into play. Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? How much risk can you take, right? Some people say, well, you should have enough money to cover your, expenses for 6 months. But like, what's your perspective on, when to make that transition?
I'm very risk averse, which is not common in my industry. More people are aggressive than not. I'm not very aggressive at all. So what I did when I started out was I did balance a W-2 job and my agency for about 6 months before I made the leap. And how during that and actually, let me go back. I didn't even plan on becoming an entrepreneur. So I didn't even know that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was just a temporary thing. I was just guiding these 2 businesses and consultant while I had my full-time job, and they would phase out in December. But what I did was when I priced those 2 contracts, I literally I was on a salary at the time, but I did the math of what my hourly rate was, and I doubled it. And that's what I told everybody. So whatever I quoted anyone that wanted my services, I took my hourly rate at that time and I doubled it. So if my hourly rate was $40 an hour, everybody that I worked with, I charged them $80 an hour, and I required them to put down a certain number in a retainer. So I did like a scope of work. How long did I think, based on what they wanted me for, how much time would it take me this month to work with them? If it was 10 hours, then they had to put down whatever half that was to even start with me. Doing that By January at 6 months, I realized that I had already doubled my salary and replaced myself.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. You will be surprised. And most people are afraid to do it because they don't understand their value.
Yes, it's the mindset. It's the employee mindset.
Because when I did the math, it wasn't that much. Legit. I think I was probably making like 40, 50 bucks an hour or something. I had this multi 6-figure salary. With this is a mind thing too. You think you're great because you're making $150,000 an hour, and you do the math on that, and it'd be like $45 an hour. You like, what the heck? Like, how is this mathing?
Right.
So when I did it, it was easy for me to say 80 bucks an hour. And I didn't always disclose that was my rate. I would just give them an $8,000 proposal for 10 hours and let them do it. And no one rejected it. That's how I doubled.
This is what I'm saying. Most of us, and I'm guilty of this, we are always thinking for other people's pockets.
Yep.
Because of our, the stories we tell ourselves, or the money trauma in our childhood, or whatever that is that we went through, right? Because we're always taught, go to school, get a job, and then it's like you trade your time for money. So this is when I teach my business mastermind courses and I have these retreats. The nurses like have a physical reaction when I'm like, you should double your prices or triple them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, listen to what you're doing. You're still answering emails. You're doing behind the work admin stuff that you're not accounting for whatever you're delivering, especially if it's like a service-based business. So it's something that you really have to get your mind around. And people really don't understand. And like you said, people are not really taught financial literacy. Like it's something that's missing in schools, obviously. But this is why I think this conference and having these conversations and this platform is so important, and working with people like you and your company to really get people on board to, creating financial wealth, because I'm tired of nurses getting underpaid. Like we're risking our lives. Literally, people have died.
Literally.
And beyond just COVID, right? Like, I used to be an emergency nurse and we had some very high risk situations. So this is when I tell nurses, like when you're building your business, you got to think, like you said, the value-based pricing. Like don't even with the hours. So go ahead. We're gonna say.
No, I was gonna say, and coming from working in mostly the law firm environment, that was all a model based on trading your time for hours and money. So it's what I did annually, reassess attorney billable rates. Like I worked at huge top 100 law firms where we had an attorney that argued before the Supreme Court at $12.75 an hour. So you do the math. And it's also taken into consideration, like you said, not just the back office stuff, but all of the stuff that you're leaving on the table of sorts when you move into a full-time entrepreneur space, your benefits, all of those things, like the constant worry. No matter how much you streamline your business, there's always this heaviness of you have people's lives, different set of lives now that you manage, because you have employees and their families and all the things. So it's worth your value to charge your rates, and the people who appreciate you and what you do will pay your rates. I don't even deal with people that negotiate like that with me anymore. Like I flat out tell it. I literally said this on a discovery call this morning where someone said, you're going to really have to sell me. I said, well, that's not what I'm here to do. And I'm not to persuade you to get our services. So I will tell you, and I will show you the ROI and what we deliver, and let you make the decision.
Amen. Because that's what it is. And that's what I had to learn the hard way. Not all money is good money, right?
They're the ones that stress you out the most too. Them ones that give you this back and forth, you're going to always regret taking that contract. Trust me.
Because, and that's why I learned early on. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, you know what? All this work I just did, don't worry about it. Here's your refund. I don't even want to work with you. Let's just cut it off right here. because
Praise the Lord.
you're going to get a bad review or testimonial. And I want to enjoy working with my clients, right? And you only want to, you're not for everybody, right? And you only want to, like you said, work with people who see the value. And the price is the price. That's it.
That's
the price
it.
is the price. And this is why I tell nurses to, you want to be able to start qualifying your clients and your leads and stuff like that. So let's get into quickly, some people have a hard time understanding this, but like before they start a business, in our heads, sometimes we want to start businesses that we just like, but may not necessarily be profitable, right? So give them some quick, I guess, tips on what is the difference between revenue and profits, and quickly, again, I'm not an expert in this, but like what are good profit margins for a business to want to like should move forward?
Yeah, those are great questions. So revenue versus profit. So revenue is the total of what your business brings in.
Right.
So oftentimes it's the model of what people ask, like when you maybe apply for a loan or something, they're like, how much revenue you need? Or if you're applying to become a part of an organization and it has a revenue requirement, it's that gross number at the top of a profit and loss statement. Or if you're not even there yet and doing your profit and your QuickBooks or anything like that, it's the total income, like on your bank statement where it shows deposits, that's your revenue.
Right.
That's revenue. Profits is the end. It is what's at the end of that P&L. How much money did you make in that, whatever that time frame is? Some people like to think of it as what's in the bank account, but that's actually a different number. So revenue is what's at the top of your P&L. How much did you bring in total? Profits is what's at the bottom. What I also like to highlight for people is your profit. Yes, your margins need to be healthy. And I usually say this is very variable depending on your industry and what you're doing. Like some people's margins can be great and some people's margins can be tight. Example, my first 2 years, my margins were 97%. I was living it great. And I was only working about 25 to 30 hours a week.
Whoa.
My margins are yeah, great. That was the whole first 2 years. My margins aren't there now, but my margins are still great. My margins are about 60% now, but I have a whole team of people behind me. I got payroll, I got benefits, I got all of these things to cover, right? So that's what really matters. And also in you guys' industry, and I don't want to get too far and complicate people in the accounting world,
right,
but you guys, something you should consider too called COGS, cost of goods sold, right? So if it's a nurse who has gone into the med spa space, let's use example, he or she has equipment that they have to upkeep that's in there. They have different devices that they'll have to purchase and maybe keep buying because they wear faster over time. They have different solutions or medications that they may sell as inventory. Those are all things that go in a different part and are considered in your gross profit. And that's where we start to get into the difference between gross profit margins versus net profit margins. So hopefully that was a clear depiction of revenue versus profit. And now I think I've forgotten what the second part of the question was.
Oh, I was just saying how, I guess we could talk about, just to give you some context, maybe like a service-based business, what is worth really pursuing in terms of like profits, but I guess it's like individually, because like for me, I'm a nurse career coach. Some people are just consultants for corporations or different things like that. So, yeah.
I can speak to that confidently because I think we align a lot in the model, right? So like I told you, my margins were 90-something% at the beginning. And I honestly think in you guys' model, especially if you are doing coaching and consultancy work, it can be the same because you shouldn't have much overhead.
Exactly.
That was the thing with me. I had one 1099 where she would help me if I got a bigger contract to come in, but in software costs, I didn't have much overhead at all.
Yeah.
So a healthy margin starting out, while it might not be 90%, you want to at least be at 40%. That's a reasonable, healthy margin, even throughout for a service-based industry. Now, I've had some clients come to me. One of the first things we do is an assessment of their revenue buckets and see not just how much revenue they're bringing in and what their margins are, but how diversified are you, right? That was a big thing we saw in this last year. And this new administration was people literally lost this when certain parts of the government were completely dismantled. Like we're talking DEI businesses gone, like different parts of GovCon because they didn't diversify. That
so
is.
Go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off, but before I forget,
go ahead.
Because we got like maybe 3-4 minutes left. So when you say diversify, are you talking about having multiple streams of income? Example, being a speaker, maybe writing a book, doing consulting, maybe having digital products. Is that what you're meaning when you're saying diversifying?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So in you guys' industry, it would look like maybe your main revenue stream is in the nursing space and the additional. Now you don't want to stretch yourself. Because I'm not a entrepreneur, I didn't seek out entrepreneurship. I often can still turn on my creative and my corporate brain. Most entrepreneurs I meet, y'all be squirrel syndrome all over the place. Like everything is shiny object syndrome. And I'm like, hold on.
Do that.
One day you're on a med spa, the next day you coaching, the next day you back in the ER. I'm like, girl, back to the ER. That is not what we talked about last month. And when did you wake up and decide to do that? Y'all be all over the place. So I need you to be still. Be still. And
like a core offer.
A core offer and maybe two others. That's it. Max out at 3. And it usually is, like you say, a speaking opportunity that drives your business, kind of like what I'm doing. Exactly what we're doing now. And then maybe you write a book or something, or maybe you host a conference every now and then, or host a retreat or something like that.
Yes, and let's talk about the retreat, because I hosted a retreat in Clearwater called Nurses Making Business Moves, and it's going to probably happen again sometime this year. But I know you have a retreat coming up in Italy. So
I am so excited about this retreat. So let me tell you how it started. Me and my business attorney were planning a trip. We'd never been to Italy, and we want to go. And as we started planning, we was like, we don't want to have to figure out what to eat. Only know what we want to do when we get there. Like maybe we don't want to do nothing when we get there. Maybe we just want to be in Europe. Like, what do we want to do? So we started getting a private chef and a yoga instructor that comes on site in the yoga studio and the villa that we got. And the villa's on the Mediterranean Sea, and it overlooks the infinity pool, overlooks the sea, and all of these. And I was like, you know what? We can find and invite several other high achieving women to experience this. What more? And you're curating a space that's going to organically be a mastermind, right? Because you got a CFO there, an award-winning business attorney, and a civil engineering firm owner who's already on tap, a wealth planner. So it's at the fireplace. So at the fireplace inside, or by the water, or whatever the case may be. There's going to be natural mastermind and 2 structured sessions. But it really is. The private chef will be there throughout the day, preparing 3 meals a day for us. Wine tasting, pasta making on site. We have a couple of excursions, but it's one all-inclusive fee covers all of that, and all you got to do is worry about airfare to get you to Italy for 7 days, and it's like none other. So I'm so looking forward to it. Just show up. That's the point. Show up. But we are taking applications. That's important to mention because I want people to come and relax, right? I don't want a whole bunch of people that's worried about work and worried about these things. Like, that's what we're coming here to truly retreat. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome. Well, I would love to definitely have you on again another time. Definitely we'll talk about maybe like retreats and things like that, because that's something I want to do more of. I did one in Clearwater and the nurses loved it. And of course, the Nurses Making Business Moves conference. If you haven't gotten your tickets, get your ticket. And if you want to learn more about how to work with Kellé, where can they find you?
They can go to kommaswithkellé.com, and I'm at Kommas with Kellé on all platforms, so they can reach me there.
Yeah, so definitely reach out to her, connect with her on LinkedIn, and check out her retreat in Italy. I'm sure it'll be amazing. And thank you again so much for the conversation. And I'm sure, we'll have you on again in the near future.
I'd love to. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Dr. Farah.
Thank you so much.